Audiomatic presents The Cure for Writer's Block by Andrew Mayne.
What it means to write what you know.
If we were to walk down the aisle of a bookstore and glance at the titles on the shelves, we'd see stories ranging from mundane personal memoirs to galaxy-spanning space operas. The characters might range from quiet shopkeepers to immortal vampires. Peering past the wide variety of topics, and examining the authors of these stories, we'd realize that they all have something in common, even the ones telling the most exotic high fantasy. They're writing from their experiences. You never have to visit Oz to tell the story of a teenage girl that finds herself magically transported there. But it does help to know something about courage, the determined resolve of a young woman, and the kinds of imaginative characters we'd find interesting. When you're told to write what you know, it doesn't mean that you should only write what you know about. It means that you should start with your own experiences and examples and then add to them your interests, your passions and questions you've always been wanting to ask. J.K. Rowling, to my knowledge, has never been to the wizarding world, but she had first-hand experience in English schools and was even a head girl. The grounded parts of the Harry Potter series, taking place in an academic environment, were based on her personal experiences. She added in a fascination for magic and her personal sense of whimsy to create a modern classic. Your stories, all of them, are going to be based in part on your experiences. While the conflicts might be totally invented, the details, large parts of the DNA that make up the story, should come from things you've already experienced. You could take the experience of disagreeing with a friend and place it in a restaurant or on the bridge of a spaceship at the far end of the solar system. Or you could just invent a conflict from whole cloth based on what you know about human nature. But if you have real examples, why not use them? There are probably 1,000 more details there than you may realize at first thought. Mine them. Paint them. Twist them. Use them as the building blocks of your story. What kind of stories should you write? Short answer, anything you want to. Long answer, stories based or influenced by your experiences, interests and passions. Experience, what you have first-hand knowledge about, your jobs, your family, your friends, your world. Interests, things you are knowledgeable about, hobbies, topics, history, anything. Passions, the things you are curious about, love, conflict, things you want to become more knowledgeable about. People who insist that you have to possess first-hand knowledge about everything you write are full of it. Yes, there is no substitute for experience, but any well-developed story is going to be filled with dozens of characters and situations that would be impossible for any one person to have experienced. That's why it's your job as a writer to do your research, use your imagination and develop your storytelling skills to fill in the gaps. It's often the case that people who are too close to something may not appreciate what a reader might. The writer exists to observe and communicate this. Summing it up, your experiences can form the foundation of your story. Your stories don't have to be literally based on them, but can draw depth from your human experience. As a writer, you have complete license to embellish and change things however you please. You're not only paid to lie, it's a requirement. Try this, think of some life experiences and how you could use them as a starting point to a story. What if there had been a monster at that boring summer camp you went to? What if a blind date turned out to be a wanted criminal? Start with what you know, then make up the rest.
Mining your experiences.
Have a seat right there. Excuse me while I turn on this light, and shine it in your eyes. What? It's too bright. Sorry, can't be helped. This is an interrogation. I need you to focus on your answers and not the man behind the desk. We're going to take an inventory of your life, starting with your childhood, up until the moment the van pulled up and you were dragged inside and brought here. Start with your earliest memory. What is it? Where were you born? Why were you born? Did your parents plan you or were you a delightful surprise? Where did you go to school? Who were your friends? What was your first job? What were the circumstances around your first kiss? Ever flown a plane? A kite? I could go on, but my point here is that I could ask you an endless number of questions and you're going to have unique answers for all of them. The more you explore your experiences, the more corridors and rooms you'll discover. As a writer, you want to mine this information and find those precious gems that you can use in your stories. You don't have to have a particularly interesting life to tell a fascinating experience. In fact, often the best stories are about very ordinary people with mundane lives that have an extraordinary experience. Your boring life sitting at a desk doing call support would be suddenly not so boring if one of your callers said they were about to kill somebody and you had to talk them out of it. The extreme nature of the situation would be grounded with the realism you're familiar with. Remember my example of a former head girl in an English school using that as a foundation for the adventures of a boy wizard. Summing it up, the more you mine your own experiences, the more you'll find opportunities for storytelling. Try this, write down as many experiences, interests and passions you have. If you put them on note cards, you can arrange them and look for interesting combinations. Throw in some wild card what-if ideas, and you'll never run out of ideas. Your job will be to pick the good ones. Here's a list of starter questions for your cards. Jobs you've had. Places you've been. Interesting people you've met. Jobs you wanted. Horrible things that have happened. Wonderful things that have happened. Family members. Family member occupations. Friends. Friend occupations. Enemies. Strangest experiences. Favorite experiences. Where you've lived. Schools you've attended. Clubs and organizations you've belonged. Hobbies. Types of books you read. As I pointed out, just because your answers are from the point of view of a 21st century person living in a normal world, that doesn't mean you can't apply these experiences to a wide variety of stories. Vampires often have to get jobs and pay rent. People in the future will still have to deal with a lot of the same personal drama that you and I experience. Think of these experiences as building blocks. Your story is what you make from them.